be, homie?
Get that bloody tie, get time money, get time green, repping that hot set when they Trey, blood.
Yeah.
I'm about to flip the clip. That JV from the Wild Stones, and he coming through, too.
Treyway, yeah. What's up, man? You know that shit, man. Billy's pull up, Bloodies pull up. Shout out to the Billy's Chaos. Word, Red. Stop playing with us, man.
Blood. It wasn't real till my man touched it.
Peter Rollock.
Home of the murder gang, Sex Money Murder. I'm sure y'all heard of it.
Once he touched it and being his realness, it transcended to the street. It was okay to be a Blood. I think the first real set that was really out on the streets and really flagging and really going wild was Sex, Money, and Murder.
Y'all pissed. Y'all know what it is. East to West, y'all already know, man. We in
In the early 1990s, New York City was a city in transition and turmoil. While gangs had long existed in the city's streets, the prison system, especially Rikers Island, became the breeding ground for something new: the United Blood Nation. Founded in 1993, the United Blood Nation aimed to unify black inmates for survival against rival Hispanic gangs like the Latin Kings and Zetas. Out of this crucible of violence, the first blood sets in New York were born. Unlike their California counterparts, these East Coast blood sets developed their own identities, rooted deeply in the neighborhoods and streets of the Bronx, Harlem, and Brooklyn. Each of these original sets, 9 Trey Gangsters, G-Shine Bloods, 1-8 Trey, Valentine Bloods, 5-9 Brims, and Sex Money Murder, carved out their own territories, built powerful reputations, and influenced everything from drug trade patterns to the very language and fashion of New York street life. Their rise would forever alter the city's criminal landscape and cement the Bloods as a dominant force on the East Coast. What follows is a look into the histories, leaders, conflicts, and legacies of the foundational blood sets that changed New York forever.
Treyway, yeah. What's up, man? You know that shit, man. Billy's pull up, Bloodies pull up. Shout out to the Billy's Chaos. Word, Red. Stop playing with us, man. Pull up with the stick, let it hit. Look at the homies, man. Look to the left of me. Look to the right of me. We outside. Man. We outside. Whoa! And we coming to LA. We get in the morning.
For the music shit, we just running around together, doing what we do, you know. Painting the town red. You know what that means and all that. If you banging the beat game, I'm talking about. You know, blood is progress, you know what I'm saying?
The 9 Trey Gangsters were the first blood set established under the United Blood Nation banner in 1993. The name 9 Trey itself is a direct reference to 1993 equals 9 Trey, the year the gang was formed. 9 Trey was founded inside Rikers Island during the inception of the UBN by Omar O, G Mac, Porty, and Leonard Diddy McKenzie. Both men adopted the Bloods moniker without formal blessing from the original West Coast Bloods, and they immediately set about recruiting other inmates into the set. 9 Trey's original purpose was to provide protection and unity for black inmates who were often targeted by heavily organized Hispanic gangs like the Latin Kings and Zetas. Early on, 9 Trey earned a fierce reputation through acts of extreme violence. This militant posture helped cement 9 Trey's role within the United Blood Nation as the primary enforcement set, tasked with carrying out retaliations, maintaining discipline, and establishing the Bloods' presence through violence. When members were released from Rikers Island, they took 9 Trey to the streets of New York City. In the mid-1990s, 9 Trey established a stronghold in Harlem. Over time, 9 Trey's influence expanded into Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and into neighboring states such as New Jersey and Virginia. Despite their growing territory, Harlem remained the set's symbolic heart. This expansion brought not only increased wealth, but also violent turf wars, both with rival gangs and eventually within Blood factions themselves. Culturally, 9 Trey Gangsters arguably had the largest impact of any New York Blood set. Their presence helped shape the popular image of 1990s gang culture in New York. The red bandanas, graffiti bearing 5-point stars, and slang like "Suwoo" became mainstream through their influence. In the early 2000s, Harlem-based rap crews such as the Diplomats' Dipset, featuring artists like Jim Jones and Jules Santana, made references to Bloods, specifically 9 Trey, in their music. In the late 2010s, rapper Tekashi 6 I multiplied by 9ine further pushed 9 Trey into the national spotlight by publicly associating himself with the gang. His subsequent arrest on racketeering charges and cooperation with federal prosecutors exposed the internal workings of 9 Trey and captivated the nation. The Showtime docuseries Supervillain highlighted 9 Trey's almost 30-year presence as a fixture in New York neighborhoods, solidifying its place in the lore of American gang history. From its earliest days, conflict was woven into 9 Trey's identity. Initially battling Hispanic gangs inside Rikers, the set later found itself at war with the Crips as the traditional Blood-Crip rivalry took root in New York. Law enforcement agencies labeled 9 Trey the most violent gang on the East Coast by the late 1990s, documenting countless cases of shootings, stabbings, extortion, and drug trafficking.
Right now at 5, a firefighter shot on Staten Island. A tense 6-hour standoff ends with bullets and tears. We're live with the investigation and the chilling post from the suspect. City firefighters in the hospital tonight as we learn more about the suspect who set off a chaotic standoff.
The gunshots broke out on Destiny Court in the Mariners Harbor section of Staten Island. The suspect was holed up in his girlfriend's home with a gun before he was shot and killed.
We have team coverage of this developing story beginning with CBS 2's Steve Langford live at the scene. Steve.
A deeply troubled man, according to some friends who had spent a good part of his life in jail, clearly did not want to be taken into custody today. He picked a fight with law enforcement and lost. The standoff in Staten Island, ending with deafening finality at high noon as police moved in on 38-year-old Garland Tyrie, who walked out of his home on Destiny Court in the Mariners Harbor section, firing this loaded assault rifle, police say, after refusing to be taken alive on a probation violation warrant. Loved ones at the scene hysterical as the wanted gang member died in a barrage of police gunfire, following a standoff that began at the break of dawn when U.S. Marshals and the NYPD came here to take Tyrie into custody. And a Facebook posting from the suspect early Friday read, quote, "Today I die." Still, police say Garland Tyrie finally told his mother over the phone that he was giving up.
He has 18 prior arrests and had been in and out of prison several times. Tyrie had been on probation since last summer. A newspaper clip he posted on Instagram shows he was arrested in the 1990s for the shooting death of a neighborhood rival, but he was convicted on a lesser charge.
Garland Tyrie, born in 1977, became one of the most powerful and feared figures in 9 Trey's post-OG Mack era. A Staten Island native, Tyrie amassed a staggering criminal record. By 2015, he had been arrested at least 18 times and spent over a decade behind bars for crimes including weapons possession and assault. While incarcerated, Tyrie became deeply involved with 9 Trey, eventually rising to control much of the gang's East Coast operations. Law enforcement and federal filings identified him as the godfather, or East Coast head, of the 9 Trey Bloods, a role that made him one of the most significant figures in the UBN hierarchy. Tyrie's criminal career and influence over 9 Trey culminated in a dramatic end. In August 2015, facing arrest at his Staten Island home, Tyrie initiated a 6-hour standoff with police. Before the siege, he posted a chilling message on Facebook reading, "Today I die," indicating he had no intention of surrendering peacefully. Wearing a bulletproof vest and wielding an AK-47, Tyrie opened fire on law enforcement officers, wounding a firefighter and shooting at U.S. Marshals. Ultimately, he met his demise during the intense shootout. His death was the explosive final chapter to a life spent deeply entrenched in violence and gang warfare. Throughout his criminal life, Tyrie was linked to various violent acts, including planning robberies and assaults. He had previously pleaded guilty to weapons charges tied to a 1995 deletion, as well as to assaults committed while he was already behind bars. Tyrie was revered within 9 Trey as a traditionalist, emphasizing loyalty, money-making, and discipline among the members. Gang lore suggests that he even helped author a code of conduct for the set, although official confirmation remains limited. Tyrie's death marked a major turning point for 9 Trey. It symbolized the end of an era where old-school enforcers still commanded ultimate respect.
What's up, man? What's up?
Y'all pissed. Y'all know what it is. East to west. Y'all already know, man. We in
the streets, man. Tell me back. You know what? I got about 300 people. You dead, son. Look at Sean Quell, you heard? I got the Quell behind me. You heard? Ooh, GKB, Icy, you heard?
The G-Shine Bloods, also known simply as G-Shine, is one of the original blood sets established on the East Coast, specifically in New York City during the early 1990s. Emerging from the Rikers Island prison system as part of the United Blood Nation, UBN, G-Shine was founded to combat the dominance of rival prison gangs like the Latin Kings and Netas, offering protection and unity for African American inmates. Among its earliest and most influential leaders were Corey King, Pimp, and OG Shaquille, who helped organize and expand the set beyond prison walls into neighborhoods across the Bronx and Brooklyn.
Anybody? Who you be, homie?
That bloody tight, get time money, get time me. Repping that hot set when they Trey, blood.
Yeah. I'm about to flip the clip. That JV from the Wild Stones, and he coming through.
1-8 Trey, 183rd Gangster Bloods, emerged in the early 1990s following the creation of the United Blood Nation. Named after 183rd Street in the Bronx, 1-8 Trey became the Bronx chapter of the growing Bloods movement. While not an independent gang before 1993, it quickly solidified when Bronx inmates and street recruits came together under UBN. 1-8 Trey was designated by UBN leadership as teachers and breeders, meaning they were responsible for training and expanding blood membership. Their rise to true power came in 1999, when OG Mack Omar Porty, the founder of UBN, took personal leadership of the Bronx Bloods after being released from prison. Mack made 1-8 Trey his home set, overseeing drug dealing, robbery, and prostitution operations based around 183rd Street and Davidson Avenue. 1-8 Trey's stronghold was the Central Bronx, especially the Fordham and University Heights neighborhoods. Their base around 183rd Street and Davidson Avenue became synonymous with Bloods activity. Under Mack's leadership, they aggressively controlled local corners for drug sales and extortion, leaving a heavy imprint on the Bronx's street life. While they began in the Bronx, 1-8 Trey's influence spread throughout the city and even beyond New York, thanks to UBN's rapid expansion. Still, their roots and identity remained firmly planted in the Bronx. While they didn't produce famous rapper members, the gang's style, language, and ruthlessness influenced local hip-hop culture and street folklore, adding to the mystique of New York Bloods in the early 2000s. 1-8 Trey was constantly at war. Externally, they battled rival drug crews and Crip sets in the Bronx. Crips like the Rolling 30s clashed with 1-8 Trey members, and violence often erupted on site. After Mack's downfall, power struggles and minor conflicts arose within Bronx Blood sets, including occasional tension with groups like Sex Money Murder. Despite these issues, 1-8 Trey maintained its reputation as one of the most respected and feared blood sets in New York.
Frazier is live outside the federal building in Raleigh to explain the judge's decision. Steve? Well, the federal judge decided that he should have life plus 7 years. That is a sentence which guarantees that Kelvin Melton will not be getting out of prison in his lifetime. And because of the vicious nature of the crime, because of his past criminal record, the Supermax prison in Colorado was the natural choice.
The facts of this case show that Kelvin Melton will attempt to commit crimes wherever he is, so he must be in a facility where that is not possible.
Kevin Melton was convicted by a federal jury of devising a kidnapping plot in 2014 aimed at Wake County Assistant DA Colleen Jansen, who had put him in this jail. The 51-year-old was accused of using a cell phone from jail to orchestrate the crime, but the kidnappers went to the wrong address and grabbed Jansen's father, Frank, by mistake. The gang members then took Jansen to Atlanta, where he was held and tortured over a 5-day period. Among the abuses, documents show that he was pistol whipped by kidnappers, who also used a stun gun on him dozens of times. He was eventually rescued by the FBI hours before the kidnappers were about to kill him. It was a case which sent shockwaves through the local law enforcement community.
Kelvin Melton, a key figure in the notorious 1A Trey set of the Bloods. Melton, who has been in prison for over a decade, is not just any inmate. He's known as the godfather of 1A Trey, a gang that started as part of the United Blood Nation, UBN, in New York City's Rikers Island, but later disaffiliated while still maintaining ties to the larger Bloods organization. From inside the walls of Polk Correctional Institution in North Carolina, Melton orchestrated a chilling series of events that shocked authorities in the nation. Back in 2012, Melton was convicted of serious charges, including assault with a deadly weapon and being a violent habitual felon. Sentenced to life in prison, Melton didn't let that stop him from maintaining control over his gang. Using a contraband cell phone, he hatched a revenge plot unlike anything we've ever seen. Melton targeted both his state prosecutor and defense attorney, planning revenge kidnappings that would go on to include a botched attempt in Louisiana and a successful kidnapping in North Carolina. In March 2014, Melton's crew attempted to kidnap the sister of his defense attorney in Louisiana. They scoped out her home for days, in constant communication with Melton, who gave them instructions from behind bars. However, that plan was called off after co-conspirators were spooked and fled the scene. But things escalated quickly in April when the gang successfully kidnapped Frank Jansen, the father of Melton's state prosecutor, in North Carolina. Armed with guns, the kidnappers stormed Jansen's home, forced him into a vehicle, and took him across state lines to Georgia. For several days, Jansen was held captive, enduring brutal physical attacks, while Melton called the shots from prison, ordering his men to kill Jansen when their initial attempt to extort ransom money failed. The kidnappers even started preparing for his burial, but just before the unthinkable could happen, the FBI swooped in. Thanks to a combination of high-tech surveillance and wiretaps, the FBI traced phone records that led them straight to the kidnappers' hideout. They rescued Jansen and arrested the co-conspirators, but the story didn't end there. Investigators quickly turned their attention to Melton, discovering that the same phone used to communicate with the kidnappers had been making calls from inside Polk Correctional. When officers confronted Melton, they found him destroying the phone, but it was too late. The FBI was able to recover the broken pieces and confirmed that it was the same device used to orchestrate both the Louisiana and North Carolina kidnapping plots. This case is a stark reminder of the lengths gang leaders will go to maintain their influence, even from behind bars. It also highlights the incredible work done by law enforcement to take down a dangerous operation before it could end in tragedy. Stay tuned as we dig deeper into the life of Kelvin Melton, his role in the 1A Trey Bloods, and how authorities are working to dismantle these criminal organizations.
The Valentine Bloods, sometimes referred to as the Valentine Gangster Bloods, were one of the original blood sets formed under the United Blood Nation in New York during the early 1990s. The set's name comes from Valentine Avenue in the Bronx, not from the holiday, highlighting the deeply local roots of its founding members. As UBN took shape inside Rikers Island in 1993, inmates from the Fordham section of the Bronx came together to form the Valentine Bloods as their official representation in the alliance. This allowed young men from Valentine Avenue and surrounding neighborhoods to unite under the Blood identity for mutual protection and empowerment. By 1994, they were recognized as one of the original 5 blood sets in New York City, establishing a solid, if smaller, presence compared to 9 Trey or G Shine. The Valentine Blood stronghold was their namesake street, Valentine Avenue, particularly the stretch from East 180th to East 190th Streets in the Fordham and Bedford Park areas. Their territory was centered in the busy, diverse heart of the Bronx, an area known for its apartment buildings and heavy drug trade during the 1990s. The Valentine Bloods operated close to other blood sets like 1-8 Trey Bloods. Beyond Valentine Avenue, members could be found in surrounding neighborhoods like University Heights and Tremont. As Bloods' influence spread along the East Coast, Valentine Bloods even surfaced in places like Norfolk, Virginia, although the Bronx remained their cultural and operational center. While they were not as large or flashy as other sets, the Valentine Bloods left a unique cultural mark. One notable contribution was their creative use of coded language. Within gang circles, they referred to themselves as Tony Starks, a clever nod to the Marvel Comics character Iron Man, to confuse law enforcement listening in on conversations. They celebrated blood traditions, such as Blood Thanksgiving, enforced the 31UBN rules, and helped shape the vocabulary and fashion that became common among Bronx street youth during the late 1990s. Although Crips were less prevalent in the Fordham area than in parts of Brooklyn, any confrontation with them saw Valentine members defending the Blood banner. A bigger local threat was the rise of the Trinitarios, a Dominican gang known for their violent tactics, including the use of machetes. Given the heavy Dominican population in the Bronx, clashes between the Valentine Bloods and Trinitarios were inevitable both on the streets and inside jails. Within the broader Blood Alliance, Valentine members had to work hard to maintain their clout. Being a smaller set, they had less representation on the UBN Council, which could lead to challenges when competing for influence or resources. Leadership within the Valentine Bloods is often associated with figures like Sholin, the godfather of this set, who, according to community accounts, co-founded the set on February 14, 1996, alongside members nicknamed Scar and Sugar. As a commander in the Northeast Bronx, Shaolin helped the Valentine Bloods expand control over parts of the Edenwald housing projects and surrounding neighborhoods. His role included recruiting members, enforcing dues, and sanctioning attacks on rivals, typical duties for a high-ranking Blood leader. Shaolin's work ensured that even though Valentine Bloods lacked the size of 9 Trey or SMM, they maintained a firm grip over their slice of Bronx turf.
Cardi B's best friend is facing charges tonight in a sweeping gang roundup. Star Brim, whose real name is Yannette Respass, was indicted on racketeering and assault charges. They say she was the highest-ranking woman in the 5'9 Brims gang. That's a subset of the Bloods street gang. She's also accused of putting out a hit on a bartender she thought was having an affair with Cardi B's husband, Offset. In recent years, Brim has become a bit of a social media celebrity with nearly 1 million followers on Instagram. She also appears on Cardi's account.
When you live an Ashton Martin lifestyle, a lot of niggas might not make it, but the few that do, go do for the ones that didn't. Regular slime time shit, Spazo B, Nickel 9 slime time, NYBBA Feed Game. You know when you stop that clock, shit tend to get shot.
Stop playing with this Brim shit. Bun you up.
I want to dedicate it to Pee Wee and Lacey. 5'9 Brims, stand up.
The 5 to 9 Brims originated in the 1990s as an offshoot of the Bloods within New York's prison system. Initially meant to be called 9-5 Brims, Mack ultimately decided on 5 to 9 Brims. The gang formed inside Rikers Island in 1995, providing protection and structure for inmates in a violent prison environment. Key figures such as Pee Wee and Lacey played crucial roles in organizing the set, helping establish it as a dominant faction within the New York Blood Brim Army. Larry O, founder of the Mack Ballads, was also closely associated with its early development. The 5 to 9 Brims became one of the first 5 blood sets in New York, marking a turning point in East Coast gang culture. Their influence expanded beyond prisons and into the streets, solidifying their presence in the larger Blood network. Despite crackdowns and leadership incarcerations, the 5 to 9 Brims legacy remains a key part of New York's gang history.
Yeah, this your boy, La Brim Johnson. So I'm going to take a moment to set the record straight for you. I see there's a lot of controversy over this Woofy thing. So first and foremost, CJ made a hot song, but the content that he used is not his content. So his foundation is based off a lie. He's not Woofy. He don't know nothing about Woofy. He just seen a fly splash and he jacked it.
Woofy moved the single when we coming through you, who's going to be 15 years ill. I'm in jail when I still show his answer to police and bitches through mail.
The Bloodhound Brims, BHB, is a faction of the Bloods emerging in the mid-2000s as part of the New York Blood Brim Army. Founded within the New York State prison system, BHB quickly expanded its influence both inside and outside prison walls, engaging in drug trafficking, violent assaults, and racketeering. Latik "Law" Brim Johnson, the gang's founder, established and controlled the Bloodhound Brims while incarcerated. Despite being behind bars, he orchestrated violent crimes, ordered attacks on rivals, and maintained leadership over the gang's operations. Authorities labeled Law Brim the godfather of BHB, citing his continued influence despite imprisonment. However, major law enforcement crackdowns have significantly weakened the gangs.
Number 5, we have Sex Money Murder.
Blood, it wasn't real till my man touched it.
Peter Rollock. Home of the murder gang, Sex Money Murder. I'm sure y'all heard of it.
Once he touched it and being his realness, it transcended to the street. It was okay to be a Blood. I think the first real set that was really out on the streets and really flagging and really going wild was Sex Money and Murder.
Originating in the Soundview region of the Bronx, New York, the street organization known as Sex Money Murder established its roots. Peter Rollock, also known as Pistol Pete, after a period in Rikers Island where he encountered a UBN leader, OG Mack, aligned the gang with the original sets of the United Blood Nation, UBN. UBN marked the genesis of the Blitz on the East Coast, particularly in New York. The formation of the gang can be credited to Greg Stone, nicknamed Grog, from the Soundview Houses, and Xavier, often referred to as X, from the Bronx River Houses, both of which are public housing developments managed by the NYCHA. The United Blood Nation itself was an alliance born in the confines of Rikers Island, amalgamating various blood sets. Rollock received a life sentence without the possibility of parole and was placed in the federal Supermax facility in Florence, Colorado. This sentence came after his family was targeted for prosecution. Pete entered a plea bargain for his involvement in the deaths and intent to kill 6 individuals at the Stevenson Commons complex in Soundview. His plea terms mandated potential indefinite segregation along with unique administrative measures that limit his communication. Even though Rollock has shown exemplary behavior in the Florence facility, efforts to ease these restrictions haven't succeeded as of 2012. Prosecutors remain concerned that any directive from Rollock could be swiftly executed by members of Sex Money Murder. Over time, SMM aligned itself with the United Blood Nation, which rose to prominence in the 1990s. This affiliation led to a rapid expansion of SMM beyond its original territories. While their primary stronghold remains in the Soundview area of the Bronx, their influence has extended into the South Bronx and several eastern Brooklyn districts such as Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brownsville, Crown Heights, and East New York. On Long Island, the gang's presence is on the rise, notably in places like Roosevelt, New York, with a smaller footprint in Hempstead, New York.
The early blood sets of New York were more than gangs. They became institutions, shaping an entire generation of urban life from prison corridors to neighborhood corners. 9 Trey Gangsters set the standard for militant enforcement and street domination. G-Shine spread the blood identity through Brooklyn and beyond. 1-8 Trey made the Bronx a blood stronghold, while Valentine Bloods maintained a proud, tightly knit presence on Valentine Avenue. Meanwhile, Sex Money Murder fused ruthless ambition with street-level entrepreneurship, creating one of the most feared and culturally influential sets of all. Together, these sets didn't just survive, they thrived, adapting to wars with Crips, internal rivalries, federal crackdowns, and changing times. Even decades later, their influence can still be felt in New York City's music, language, and street culture. They turned what began as a desperate survival tactic in prison into a sprawling, complex organization that reached far beyond Rikers Island. Their stories are reminders that behind every headline about gangs lies a deeper history of power, identity, loyalty, violence, and survival, a history that continues to echo through the streets of New York today.